But we head down to unearth the secrets of the RAND Corporation, the research institution that has molded our world for the past 60 years. Of course, the latest other videos and alternative media from CorbettReport.com, the Sunday Update, everything is related, and another excellent standalone video, The Last Word on Overpopulation. We also have the latest from my man Richard Grove at TragedyAndHope.com. The Peace Revolution podcast, peacerevolution.org, episode 17, Nonviolent Solutions for Everyday Situations. I can't recommend peacerevolution.org enough to you. And again, all these alternative media outlets are corporate free and survive and thrive with your support. I would wholeheartedly recommend you get a subscription to the TragedyAndHope.com community. Lastly, for most of my favorite alternative media shows, groundzeromedia.org, Project Bluebeam, the rise and fall of the neo-skeptic. This episode gets into the UFO on the Dome of the Rock, and even the newborn child left there some days afterward. But it also gets into an angle that has not been covered very well, and that was the recent lockdown at Dugway Proving Ground. So, groundzeromedia.org is your source for all this, the massive article on Project Bluebeam, as well as podcasts for you to get the episode. Clyde Lewis broadcasts live here in Portland, Oregon every Sunday night on KUFO 101.1 FM, blasting alternative media out to a huge, huge audience. So again, a huge thanks and huge props to all those guys and all the gals, all the folks out there who help spread the word of independent, commercial-free, corporate-free alternative media. We'll hop to cyberspacewar.com with keeping with what we've already mentioned. We've got a couple posts giving you the mystery of the cyberspace war. 1954 Eisenhower alien psyop. Fast forward to a new chapter highlighting a new article from Michael Sala of exopolitics.org and the story of Eisenhower's supposed alien contact at Edwards Air Force Base. Furthermore, Hercolobus, Nibiru, Nemesis, Planet X, or Tyche. UniverseToday.com article also sourcing The Independent and all around covering the space events. And again, the amazing thing that I love about having folks now helping post to some of the sites in the Media Monarchy Kingdom is now I'm learning things, but when it comes time to do the show here, I don't have my homework done because I didn't post this article. So I apologize for the times that I kind of stumble over some of these posts. And again, it's even news to me sometimes. But back on planet Earth and back in the cyber war, Algeria shuts down the net as protests mount. There were reports out of Algeria. The government deleted internet and Facebook accounts across the country. According to an article at The Telegraph, quote, "The government doesn't want us forming crowds through the internet," said Rashid Salem of Coordination for Democratic Change in Algeria. This going back to last Sunday, February 13th. We'll blast down the list of headlines on cyberspacewar.com, posted up under the February 17th DEF CON cyber coup, backdoor, and track more. Cyber attack hits Canadian government computers. That was yesterday, February 17th. More on that from the BBC. And we go around the world now with geopolitics intrinsically being intertwined with the new cyberspace war. Threat level, covering a report that says Egypt shut down the net with the big switch, with the kill switch, not with diplomacy and phone calls as was originally trumpeted. Voice of America uses social media to aid foreign dissent. You bet your ass they do. More on that from Danger Room, and we even referenced on the latest NewWorldNextWeek.com episode, Voice of America, a well-known intelligence-connected asset. And that's what they do. Propaganda. Surveillance footage and code clues indicate Stuxnet hit Iran. Just more documentation on that story. And we've laid it out pretty well that it was made by U.S. Real. CIA head Leon Panetta warns of possible cyber Pearl Harbor. Always using the same terminology. William J. Lynn III still urging partnership against cyber threat. That's from DefenseTalk.com. We reported on Lynn in the last couple of months, and he urging public and private sector to get into bed together as if they're not. DoD talks up plans to deploy Cyber Commandos 3.0. As we've been telling you here for years now, they want to fight the net. But we've got a bit from tarpley.net that goes into a lot of areas. And unfortunately, this isn't going to be the last time we're going to hear from Shillery in this weekend's episode. But discussing, just as we've said, now the intertwined geopolitics and cyberspace war, Hillary announces expanded U.S. cyber coup campaign.
All right, so here's one of those ironic twists of fate. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton gave a major speech today on internet freedom and why it's important to make sure those freedoms are available around the world. Meanwhile, just across the river, the U.S. government asked a federal judge to require Twitter to turn over confidential information about the use of its services by 3 people associated with WikiLeaks. So, if I understand this right, the U.S. government is championing freedom of information, except when it's in secret cables made public about the U.S. government. For more now, I'm joined by investigative journalist Webster Tarpley. And Webster, let me just lay out a couple different contrasts here. The U.S. government wants to train human rights workers to be able to take information off their phone if they're detained by police. But then again, they go after U.S. citizens, their cell phone records, their computers. What's this all about?
Well, there is hypocrisy and a double standard, but I think the real double standard is Hillary Clinton is out there today posturing about internet freedom, whereas the head of her regime, Obama, has demanded and presumably received the ability to turn off the internet in the United States. What Mubarak did in self-defense is what Obama can now do. That's the big hypocrisy. Hillary gives these speeches about once a year now, right? So she's out there announcing that the U.S. government is interfering in internal affairs of countries. So far, they're tweeting, State Department guys are tweeting in English, French, and Spanish. They've added Arabic and Farsi, so they're going big in Persian language into Iran, and they're adding Chinese, Russian, and Hindi, so all these other targets that opened up. And she also announced, she says it's a venture capital approach, with 25 million on top of the 20 million they had already given out to people like Falun Gong to find a way to break the Great Wall of China, which is the thing that they're targeting.
And that's so interesting because, you know, you talk about the U.S. using the internet to either work with these other countries, but a lot of leaders, a lot of people are looking at this and saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe the U.S. should step back a little bit, including earlier today a suggestion by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. He said that the U.S. and Western allies should not use, for example, Egypt and Tunisia, which use the internet, but they shouldn't use these revolutions to try to stir up democracy and protests in the Middle East, that they should instead, you know, back off. I'll play you what he said.
We are convinced that calls for revolutions are counterproductive. We've had more than one revolution in Russia, and we believe that we don't need to impose revolutions on others. We don't think that we can tighten the screws or take sides.
So clearly the U.S. has not gotten this message. You were just talking about this. No. They just launched this new website, or they just launched a new Twitter website in Farsi. I want to show you real quick a couple of tweets that they showed. They said, you know, tweet, we want to join in your conversations. They said, U.S. calls on Iran to allow people to enjoy same universal rights to peacefully assemble to demonstrate, just like in Cairo. Talk about this.
They support all revolutions but the one here. The thing that Hillary Clinton talked about is digital activists. In other words, there's a youth bulge around the world. They want to mobilize these people. I think what she's got in mind is a secret army of hackers and indeed trolls that will be the shock and awe of the new decade. And this is what they were able to deploy in Egypt. It's simple. You get the rich kids using Facebook and Twitter. You get the rich kids into the square. You put that on television, you convince the rest of the society that the government is deeply unpopular, and the revolution takes off. It's a way to manipulate and dupe an entire society. And this is what a color revolution or CIA people power coup or postmodern coup actually is.
Let's switch gears now and go to across the river to federal court. U.S. prosecutors today asked a federal judge for Twitter records associated with WikiLeaks, associated with, Julian Assange, Bradley Manning, and another supporter. Do you think Americans care about this hypocrisy going on here?
Well, look, I would say, first of all, I condemn the Department of Justice for harassing these people and trying to chill free speech. But on the other side, we're dealing here with a CIA limited hangout, a self-exposure operation in the form of WikiLeaks. This is Assange is now the Justin Bieber for a whole generation of nihilists around the world.